Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. Just give me a second to pull up this presentation. So before you tonight, we have the Parkview Estates rezone and preliminary plat. And basically, there's three aspects of your proposal tonight. The first one is the rezoning of the eastern 100 feet of the subject property from the motor business designation to the medium density residential, which is R3 designation. Second aspect is the preliminary subdivision plat of Lot 1, Block 1 of Parkview Estates Edition. Also part of the proposal before you tonight is a review of an original condition placed upon the original Parkview Estates subdivision that a right turn only stop sign be in place for the southbound traffic lane at the intersection of Jefferson Street and McKinley Street. So this is just to familiarize yourself with the subject property. In the center of the screen, outlined in red, approximately 7.8 acres, bordered by Jefferson Street to the east, Rodeo Drive to the north, as well as US 95 or North Main Street to the west. It's located directly north of Moscow Building Supply. You also have various residential located directly to the east, two-family residential transitioning to single-family residential. Directly to the north, you have Rodeo Strip Mall, as well as a currently vacant credit union building. Another vacant piece of property here to the northwest, and various other residential and commercial properties adjacent to the west across US 95. Current land use designation, designated by the comprehensive plan, is auto-urban commercial. Directly to the east, you have neighborhood conservation. Directly to the north, you also have auto-urban commercial, as well to the south. Properties located to the west are in neighborhoods conservation as well. Just some excerpts from the comprehensive plan. Those AUC designated areas are intended to provide for commercial services and developments that are motor vehicle oriented or those which require large amounts of land. Those areas should be located adjacent to existing commercial developments and along major arterials where vehicular traffic can be accommodated, and they're also appropriately zoned motor business. So this is the current zoning designation of the property. It's all motor business. Directly to the east, you have an R3 designation. East beyond that is the moderate density residential, which is R2. To the west is R3, and also to the south, you also have the motor business designation, which has Moscow Building Supply. So this would be the proposal before you tonight for the rezone. Basically, just the eastern 100 feet of this property to be rezoned to the medium density residential, which is the R3 designation. R3 zoning district provides for an increase in density over the R2 zone, which permits different types of housing construction. It's appropriate where activity levels are moderate. Terrain permits the type of construction of somewhat larger structures, where public systems and neighborhood facilities can accommodate a greater intensity of land use. So generally we have single-family dwellings, two-family dwellings, twin homes, and townhouses. And the commonly observed densities of that zone would be 7 to 14 units per net acre. This is the proposed preliminary subdivision plat on Lot 1, Block 1. As you can see, there's 6 residential lots here to the east side, basically around 9,450 square feet in size. Located adjacent to Jefferson Street. You also have the remaining lot, which is 6.57 acres in size, which is proposed to remain in the motor business designation. You can see we have existing water sewer lines running up Jefferson Street, as well as US 95 and Rodeo Drive. You can see existing, these would be water services connecting to the common lot lines on the parcels. You also have a 20-foot wide utility easement between the 6 residential parcels and the motor business parcel, which contains storm sewer and sanitary sewer, conveys it to the north over to an existing manhole south of Rodeo Drive, and ultimately conveyed to a stormwater detention pond at the intersection of Julie Drive and Rodeo Drive. We also have a stormwater drainage report submitted by Hodge & Associates. just to take a look at the current capacity of that stormwater detention pond, and that's been reviewed and approved by our city engineer, Kevin Lilly, that's acceptable. So we have a review of the original Parkview Estates condition, that the stop sign was in place for that southbound traffic lane at the intersection of Jefferson and McKinley. We have a February 27, 2013 memo, also from Kevin Lilly, city engineer, who provided some review and a recommendation on that previous condition. So since the initial condition was enacted, Jefferson has since been resurfaced with asphalt grindings and a penetrating emulsion. Basically, it just used to be a gravel street. You have a 50-foot roadway width. You also have a 60-foot roadway, not a right-of-way width, excuse me, on that portion of Jefferson Street south of the intersection, and you also have a 60-foot right-of-way width to the north. So there was initial concerns from residents that the taper of that roadway, along with the current asphalt, or the current unpaved condition of that street, would cause dust and some other nuisances on that portion. So cities received several citizen requests that the restriction be removed since that point. The traffic counts show an average weekday count of 249 vehicles per day approaching the intersection. The intersection is also a standard T geometry. And with that, the Public Works Department recommends that that restriction be removed at that intersection at this time. And these three proposals tonight was reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission during a public hearing on February 27, 2013, and they recommended approval of the rezone and preliminary plat, and also recommended that the right turn only restriction be removed at the Jefferson Street and McKinley Street intersection. So staff's recommendation before you tonight is to conduct a public hearing upon the proposed rezone, and upon consideration of testimony presented, approve the rezone ordinance under suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and that it be read by title and published by summary, and to conduct a public hearing upon the preliminary subdivision plat, and upon consideration of any testimony presented, approve the preliminary plat for Lot 1, Block 1 of Parkview Estates with no conditions. And lastly, consider the recommendation provided by the Public Works Department regarding the right turn only stop sign for southbound traffic at that intersection, and approve the removal of the right turn only restriction. And with that, I'd certainly be able to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mike. Well done, as always. Council have any questions for Mike, substantive on his report? Dan?
Yeah, just curious as to why to the center of, I guess, it looks like on the map, we're rezoning to the center of Rodeo Drive. Is that?
We usually pick up half of the adjacent roadway width in our zoning. It just so happens that this R3 zone ends up going completely across the street to the west side of the street. It should only go basically to the center line of each street, the zoning district. And so we're just making amends there on the north,
okay,
just to bring it to the center of the street.
Okay.
Wayne?
Mike, would you go back to the plat, please? Where are you showing your water and sewer?
Existing mains are on Jefferson Street. You have water connections that come to the common lot lines of these lots, and you have storm sewer and sanitary sewer within a 20-foot wide utility easement, basically at the rear of those 6 lots. Ends up being conveyed to the manhole south of Rodeo.
You've got an easement at the back of each lot for water and sewer easements.
Just sewer.
Just sewer. Okay.
There's
so are we safe to assume that the city's not going to allow any kind of building construction over that easement?
No.
The city's
we're
done
not.
that in years past, and we're actually addressing an issue with that tonight, later on. So, okay.
No.
Thank you.
Okay. Other
No, we did it
questions
in
for
the
Mike?
consent
It's Walter.
agenda. I think it was in
Mike, the stormwater, and then I'll pick up my question with the Public Works Director. The stormwater goes north in the easement behind the proposed duplexes,
Correct.
and then it goes east or west?
And then it turns west, ends up to a manhole existing on the South Rodeo side, and then ends up going east down to the stormwater detention pond.
Okay, and my question for Les in Public
So-
Works.
That would be the stormwater detention pond.
Right. Apologize for not asking this earlier, but like I say, when I think of them at the meeting, I think of them at the meeting. Most stormwater detention ponds are placed on the property from which the water is being collected, possibly by statute or by our regs and rules or by practicality. Taking this stormwater off-site to another stormwater pond, I understand the calculations say it can handle it, not a problem. Is the taking it to a pond on a different piece of property an issue?
Please.
Madam Mayor, there really are two conditions that we see for stormwater facilities. One is if you're developing a large commercial or multifamily type site that requires detention for stormwater, that it becomes a private stormwater facility constructed on that parcel. So for instance, the building supply, if that was constructed today, would have an on-site private facility on their parcel of land that they would manage.
Okay.
For subdivisions like this, we have public facilities that are placed on a tract or a lot that is dedicated to the city, operated and maintained by the city. And that is the case with this subdivision. The little parcel in red here is a public facility that was constructed with the development of the subdivision to serve all of the roads and lots within that subdivision area. So it is acceptable for other residential lots within the subdivision or added to the subdivision to go to that public facility if it has adequate size. In this case, it does.
And if I may, and it's the responsibility of the developer to get it there, even if it means using existing stormwater lines in order to do so.
Right. And again, as long as the public mains that are in place today that would traverse from this site to the public pond have adequate capacity, then those are acceptable to use as a route to get there. And that's the case here.
And these do. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Other questions? Yes, for staff.
Kind of
Go
a
ahead.
follow-up, thank you. How much more, after, assuming that the 6 lots are put in place, how much more can that surface water retention pond handle?
Well, since I'm not the one who reviewed the calculations, I can't give you
Sorry.
specific numbers. At this point, it was reviewed in terms of could it handle these additional 6 lots, and the answer was yes, it could. If there were other developments that wanted to add to that, we would have to look at those on a case-by-case.
Thank you.
Another follow-up.
Sure, go ahead.
We're going to work stormwater here tonight. The remaining property in Lot 1, Block 1, which will be still be motor business, upon development, would that require on-site stormwater detention, or is the fact the platting was done possibly prior to the stormwater requirements mean that it doesn't have to have any?
Les?
At this stage, it is still an undeveloped parcel of land. It was created through a platting process, but the intent was that it would be a commercial facility, commercial site. And so under our current regulations, if it were to develop at this time, it would be required to construct its own stormwater detention facility in accordance with our standards.
On its own site?
property, yes,
Thank you.
as a commercial facility.
Okay.
Very good, thanks, Mike. There are 2 public hearings in conjunction with the council's consideration this evening. The first of these will be concerned with exclusively the rezone aspect, and then the second one will be about the preliminary subdivision plat. So what I typically will do, and will do tonight, is to invite testimony first from the applicant and/or their representatives, and others who are generally in support of the proposed rezone. Then I'll invite testimony in opposition or general testimony, and if there is, if it's called for, then subsequent to that, we'll ask for rebuttal, invite rebuttal from the applicant. So with that, and we always have you state your name and address for our record. We ask that you be brief in your remarks, and certainly we anticipate the applicant will have a little more of the substantive materials to present to our council